Hi guys, welcome to another episode of QQ. We're a second perspective. I'm Paul Weston, and normally I have Nathan Smith beside me, but he can't make it today. So we have a wonderful guest, Noah.
Hello.
Say hi.
How are you all today?
Today we are going to do Whiplash. It's come out very recently, was nominated for an Oscar, and it was directed by Damien Chazelle. He was starring Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons. He did one other film, the director, Guy and Madeline on a park bench. It was like back in 2009. I had never heard of it, hadn't seen it. So this is a really relatively new director on the stage, on the screen for most of us. A young 30 years old, so that's quite impressive. A short synopsis. Essentially, it's a very simple storyline. A aspiring drummer wants to be the very best, and he meets a instructor that has very questionable ways of unlocking people's potential. So those two characters kind of meet each other, and all sorts of really awesome and crazy things happen.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying things.
Yeah. So I'll start. The grade I gave it was I'm giving it is an A. Not an A+. There are a few things, but I'll go with the strengths first. First and foremost, the performance. They're fantastic. I believe J.K. Simmons won for Best Supporting.
Mm-hmm.
And Miles Teller, the person who plays Andrew, the protagonist, also does a very fantastic job. The script itself is quite a tight script. The majority of its moments serve multiple purposes. We'll talk much more about that in our discussion. But there's not too many sort of wasted moments. And the music, I mean, it's about a drummer, so obviously the soundtrack is very, very interesting. But speaking briefly, going back to the tight scripts, the sort of main weaknesses that I thought it had were just a few key plot points that I just thought were either a little bit ridiculous or because so many of the elements were so well polished, the ones that weren't as perhaps polished themselves or thought through or just didn't quite follow sort of same laser focus that this film had, they stood out much more. So obviously we don't spoil anything in the review, but I think there were just a few issues with some of the script that it just kind of stops it from being an A+. What do you think, Noah?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Paul. My diagnosis would be a strong and solid A.
Yeah.
That being said, I'll start with weaknesses because I have very few. I think it's rare to give anything an A+ because perfection is hardly ever achieved. Almost to the point where the weaknesses I really need to
Nitpick a little?
I really need to nitpick with this one, which we can do later. But strengths, as Paul said, and I fully agree, this thing is tight, it's simple, which makes it all the more terrifying, like I said earlier. It's suspenseful, and it's over-the-toply simple, which is great to see.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't kind of go crazy with time machines or
no.
It's done in like 5 rooms and it's a total pressure cooker, and it does all sort of like the fundamentals of
pressure cook. That's a good point. It's all in the one rice cooker, and you just got like everything is happening in there, and the whole film is this thing just boiling over. So you're not ever really lost. You're just able to really concentrate on the little granules of rice.
So what's assuming that A+ is not perfection, but it's just like it's the best at, like, for me, going very briefly on something else, Magnolia is an A+. Right? That's one of my favorite films of all time. What stopped this from being an A+? Like, what was the weakness, or did it just not quite have enough or something?
I didn't get up out of my seat and like cheer and move. My leg was going to the like a lot.
Yeah.
Which helps with the A, but I was never like able to get out of my seat in joy. I think that's a pure A+ is when you can't actually physically hold yourself in the seat.
That's very interesting.
Like rewatching Lion King is that.
Oh yeah,
That's about the only that'll ever happen.
very interesting. So
Tarzan too.
Tarzan as well.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a very obvious question, but do you recommend people to go see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I highly recommend going to see this, and I also recommend seeing it either A, with good headphones, or B, in a good theater. Don't go somewhere it's going to be talking... Get the full experience of this... these drums.
Yeah,
these drums are going to blow your mind.
It's very, very visceral. I obviously recommend it as well. Unfortunately, I saw it in the theater. It didn't quite have a fantastic sound system, but I still got, I think, most of it, most of the experience. I'm going to go watch this film again in the next 6 months. It's just a thing. The instant it comes out, I'm going to buy it.
Soundtrack is great.
Yeah, Noah's telling me just off air that he has a soundtrack, and I thought, I might want to grab that myself, which is a very rare thing. I'm not the most musically inclined, or sound is not necessarily my strength, and it's still, that part was still super alluring to me. So,
especially jazz, the jazz area of music, I know, very little about. I do have, like, your normal jazz collection of Miles Davis and all that stuff, but this is a nice cherry on top. Helps you learn a little bit about the real niche of jazz.
Yeah, so short of it, go see it. Right after this, we're going to be recording the discussion where we can finally start spilling our guts about how we actually feel about very minute things. We will be talking about things that we love and some of the few points that kind of stuck out that we were just sort of very curious as to why it was there. So join us for the discussion, and thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.